Do you ever feel like the world is conspiring against you? That circumstances, people, or just bad luck are the reasons you're not where you want to be. It's a heavy feeling, a sense of being adrift in a storm not of your making. This frustration, this feeling of powerlessness, is a common human experience, a burden that many of us carry, often silently. We point fingers outwards. If only they hadn't done that, or if only the situation were different. This narrative, where we are the victim of external forces, can feel temporarily comforting. It absolves us, seemingly. But what if this very act of blaming the world is the heaviest chain holding us back from true peace and progress? Today, we explore a challenging yet profoundly liberating idea from the philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre. An idea that suggests the key to unlocking our potential and finding our freedom lies not in changing the world, but in fundamentally changing our relationship with ourselves and our choices. It's a journey inward, towards a radical form of self-accountability. Sartre famously stated, "Man is condemned to be free." This isn't a condemnation to suffering, but an assertion of our inescapable responsibility. We are free to choose our actions, our attitudes, our responses, and because of this freedom, we are entirely responsible for what we make of our lives, regardless of the circumstances we are born into or encounter. The title of our reflection is Stop Blaming the World, Start Blaming Yourself. Now, that word blame can feel harsh, accusatory, but in this context, it's not about self-flagellation or wallowing in guilt. It's about recognizing where the true power to change your experience resides, within you. It's about reclaiming your agency. When we blame the world, we essentially give our power away. We become passive observers in our own lives, waiting for external conditions to align perfectly before we can be happy or successful. This waiting can last a lifetime, leading to a sense of stagnation and deep-seated resentment. Imagine a ship without a rudder, tossed about by every wave and gust of wind. That's the state of a mind that constantly outsources responsibility. Sartre's philosophy invites us to grasp the rudder firmly, to acknowledge that while we cannot control the storm, we can choose how we navigate it. So what does it mean to blame yourself in a Sartrean sense? It means to look at a situation, especially a difficult one, and ask, what was my role here? What choices did I make or not make? How did my perceptions and interpretations shape my experience of this event? It's about understanding that even in inaction, there is a choice. Even when we feel constrained, we choose our attitude towards those constraints. This is the radical freedom Sartre speaks of, the freedom that exists even in the face of overwhelming external pressures. It is the freedom of our inner response. This shift in perspective is not about denying that external factors exist or that life can be incredibly unfair. Injustice is real. Pain is real. But focusing solely on what is outside our control leaves us perpetually disempowered. The power lies in shifting our focus to our own contribution, our own response. Consider a project that failed. The common reaction might be to blame a difficult client, uncooperative colleagues, or lack of resources. These may all be contributing factors, but the Sartrean approach encourages a deeper, more personal inquiry. It asks, what was my part in this outcome? Did I communicate my needs clearly? Did I anticipate potential problems? Did I exhaust all my creative solutions? Was I truly committed, or did I hold back? These questions are not meant to induce shame, but to illuminate areas for growth and future agency. They return control to you. Sartre believed that we define ourselves through our actions. Existence precedes essence, he famously wrote. This means we are not born with a fixed nature or destiny. We are what we do. Every choice, every action contributes to the person we are becoming. There is no pre-written script. When we blame the world, we are, in a sense, trying to shirk this fundamental responsibility of self-creation. We are saying, I am this way because of X, Y, or Z. Sartre would argue that you are this way because you choose to respond to X, Y, or Z in a particular manner. This idea can feel like a heavy burden. The weight of total responsibility for one's life can seem overwhelming. Condemned to be free sounds like a curse, but it is also the source of our greatest dignity and potential. It means your life is truly yours to create. Let's explore the concept of bad faith or mauvaise foi. This is Sartre's term for when we deceive ourselves into believing we are not free, when we pretend we are objects, determined by external forces, rather than subjects who choose their own way. It's a denial of our fundamental freedom. An example of bad faith: a waiter who acts overly servile, convincing himself his role defines him, rather than seeing it as a role he chooses to play in a certain way. He denies his freedom to be otherwise, to imbue his actions with his own authentic self, even within the constraints of his job. We all engage in bad faith to some extent. It's a way to avoid the anxiety of freedom and responsibility. "I had no choice," we say, or "that's just the way I am." Sartre challenges us to see these as excuses, as ways of avoiding the difficult truth of our agency. The alternative to bad faith is authenticity. Living authentically, for Sartre, means fully accepting our freedom and the responsibility that comes with it. It means making choices consciously and taking ownership of them, creating a life that is a true reflection of our values, even if it's difficult. So how does this relate to stopping blaming the world? When we blame external factors, we are often operating in bad faith. We are denying our power to choose our response, our interpretation, our next action. We are denying our capacity to shape our experience from the inside out. Consider a difficult relationship. It's easy to list the other person's faults, how they make things hard. But what if we turn the lens inward? How do I contribute to this dynamic? What are my patterns of reaction? What new choices could I make, regardless of their behavior? This isn't about accepting mistreatment. It's about recognizing your freedom to set boundaries, to communicate differently, or even to walk away. Blaming the other person keeps you tethered to their actions. Taking responsibility for your part, your choices, gives you the power to change your own experience of the relationship. The world itself is largely neutral. It presents us with circumstances, a storm, a promotion, a loss. These events are like raw materials. It is our consciousness, our freedom, our choices that sculpt these raw materials into an experience that is joyful, tragic, or an opportunity for growth. Think of it like a painter and a canvas. The canvas, the world, the circumstances is there. But the painter, your consciousness, chooses the colors, the strokes, the subject. The final artwork is a product of that interaction, that choice. Two painters given the same canvas will create vastly different works. When you feel frustrated, pause. Instead of immediately looking outward for the cause, look inward. Ask, what am I choosing to focus on here? How am I interpreting this event? What meaning am I assigning to it? You might be surprised by the power you find in these questions. This is not to say that your interpretations are wrong. It's to say that they are chosen, often unconsciously. And if they are chosen, they can be rechosen. You can choose interpretations that empower you rather than diminish you. This is a profound act of self-creation. The feeling of being overwhelmed by the world often stems from focusing on things we cannot change. Traffic, the weather, other people's opinions. Sartre's wisdom guides us to redirect our precious energy towards what we can influence: our thoughts, our attitudes, our actions, our responses. This principle is beautifully illustrated, though not by Sartre himself, by figures like Viktor Frankl, who found meaning and freedom of choice even in the horrific conditions of a concentration camp. He could not choose his circumstances, but he could choose his inner response, his attitude. This is the ultimate freedom, the freedom to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. This freedom cannot be taken away. It is inherent to our existence as conscious beings. It is the bedrock of human dignity. So when we say start blaming yourself, we mean start recognizing your power. Start seeing yourself as the primary creative force in your own life story. You are the author, not just a character being written by external events. This is an empowering, liberating stance. It requires courage. It's often easier to be the victim, to live in bad faith. Taking full responsibility means there's no one else to point to when things go wrong. But it also means that when things go right, the success, the joy, the meaning, that is yours. You earned it. You created it. How do we begin to practice this? Start small. Notice today, just once, when you find yourself blaming something or someone external for a negative feeling or outcome. Catch yourself in that moment. That awareness is the first crucial step. Once you've noticed it, gently ask, is there any part of this, no matter how small, that I am responsible for? Is there a different choice I could have made or could make now? What is within my power to change here? Don't judge the answer, just observe. Perhaps it's your reaction. Maybe you snapped when patience was an option. Perhaps it's your interpretation. Maybe you assumed the worst when other explanations were possible. Or perhaps it's your inaction. You stayed silent when you could have spoken up. This isn't about finding fault. It's about finding freedom. Every time you identify a choice you made, you reclaim a piece of your power. You see that you were not simply a passive recipient of events, but an active participant, even if unconsciously. The world often acts as a mirror, reflecting our own internal state. If we carry anger and resentment, we tend to find reasons to be angry and resentful everywhere. If we cultivate peace and responsibility, we find opportunities for agency and growth even in difficult situations. Sartre's philosophy encourages us to polish our internal mirror. By taking responsibility for our inner world, our thoughts, beliefs, and attitudes, we change what is reflected back to us. The world doesn't change, but our experience of it transforms radically. Imagine you're stuck in traffic. Blaming the traffic, the city planners, other drivers, this creates stress and helplessness. Taking responsibility might mean asking, could I have left earlier? Can I use this time productively? Can I choose to remain calm despite the situation? The power in that simple shift is immense. You move from being a victim of the traffic jam to an agent within the traffic jam. You reclaim your inner peace and your power of choice, even in a situation you cannot physically alter. This is practical existentialism. Each moment presents a choice, not always a choice of external circumstances, but always a choice of internal response. This is the profound truth at the heart of Sartre's call to responsibility. It's a constant opportunity to define who we are. To stop blaming the world is to embark on a path of self-mastery. It means becoming acutely aware of your own patterns of thought and behavior, and consciously choosing patterns that serve your growth and well-being. It is a journey of becoming your own best guide. Think about a time you felt truly proud of an accomplishment. Likely, it involved overcoming obstacles, making difficult choices, and persevering. You didn't blame the obstacles. You took responsibility for navigating them. That sense of earned pride is a taste of authentic living. The more you practice this internal locus of control, the less the outside world will seem to dictate your emotional state. You become more resilient, more centered, more capable of navigating life's inevitable ups and downs with grace and agency. This doesn't mean you become passive or indifferent to injustice in the world. On the contrary, by taking responsibility for your own power, you are better equipped to act meaningfully and effectively to create positive change, starting with yourself and extending outwards. True strength isn't about never falling or never facing adversity. It's about how you choose to get up, how you choose to learn from the fall, and how you choose to move forward. This choice is always yours. Blaming the world takes that choice away. Embracing this philosophy can feel like stepping out of a fog. Suddenly, paths become clearer, not because the landscape changed, but because your vision, your internal compass, is now attuned to your own agency. You see possibilities where before you only saw barriers. Sartre's message is ultimately one of profound optimism, despite its demanding nature. It affirms that human beings are not predetermined. We are architects of meaning, value, and purpose in our own lives. The materials might be given, but the design is ours. When you shift from "the world is doing this to me" to "I am choosing this in response to the world," everything changes. Frustration gives way to focus. Resentment transforms into resolve. Victimhood evolves into creative power. This is not a one-time fix, but a lifelong practice. There will be days when it's easier to slip back into old habits of blame. Be gentle with yourself. The goal is progress, not perfection. Each moment of conscious choice strengthens your capacity for freedom. The beauty of this perspective is that it's always accessible. No matter your external circumstances, the freedom to choose your inner stance, your next thought, your immediate action is always present. It is your unshakable core. Let's return to the idea of condemned to be free. It implies that we cannot escape our freedom. We cannot not choose. Even choosing to let circumstances dictate our lives is itself a choice. Acknowledging this is the first step to wielding that freedom consciously. Consider the weight of this freedom. If you are truly the author of your life, then every word, every chapter matters. This isn't meant to induce anxiety, but rather a profound sense of purpose. Your life is your masterpiece, and you hold the brush. When you blame the world, you are essentially handing the brush to someone else or to the whims of fate. You are saying, "You paint my life for me." Sartre urges us to take back that brush, no matter how challenging the subject matter. Starting to blame yourself means starting to see your choices as the primary determinants of your experience. Not your inherent worth, but your lived reality. It's about shifting from a mindset of "things happen to me" to "I respond to what happens." This perspective is incredibly empowering when facing adversity. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" the question becomes, "Given that this is happening, what will I do? Who will I choose to be in this situation?" This shift doesn't make problems disappear, but it changes your relationship to them. Problems become challenges to be met, puzzles to be solved, opportunities for growth, rather than insurmountable walls that define your limits. You become an active agent in their resolution. Remember, bad faith is seductive because it offers comfort. The comfort of not being responsible. But this comfort is illusory and comes at the cost of your power and authenticity. True, lasting peace comes from embracing your freedom, however demanding. Each day we make countless small choices. What to eat, what to read, how to speak to someone. Sartre would say these are not trivial. They are the building blocks of our essence. They are how we define ourselves moment by moment. When you take responsibility for these small choices, you begin to build a life of intention. You are no longer passively carried by habit or circumstance, but actively steering towards a self-chosen destination, guided by your own values. Blaming the world often involves a lot of if-onlys. If only I had more money. If only I lived elsewhere. Sartre's philosophy encourages us to work with what is, right here, right now. Your freedom exists in this moment with these resources in these circumstances. The act of creation, whether it's art, a business, a relationship, or simply a well-lived day, is an expression of this freedom. It's about taking the raw material of existence and shaping it through your choices and actions. This is where meaning is found. So the next time you feel the urge to blame an external factor, try this. Acknowledge the external factor. Yes, this traffic is bad. Then, immediately pivot. And what will I choose to do or be in response to this bad traffic? This simple pivot is a powerful tool. It reclaims your internal space. It reminds you that while you may not control the event, you absolutely control your experience of the event. This is the core of personal sovereignty. Think of your mind as a garden. If you let external events, the world, plant whatever seeds they wish, weeds of resentment, fear, blame, then that's what will grow. Taking responsibility means you become the deliberate gardener of your own mind. You choose which thoughts to cultivate, which perspectives to water, which attitudes to nourish. This internal cultivation is the essence of blaming yourself in the Sartrean sense. It's taking responsibility for your inner landscape. The freedom Sartre describes is not an easy, breezy freedom. It's a weighty, sometimes terrifying freedom because it leaves no room for excuses. But within that weight is also an incredible lightness. The lightness of knowing you are in charge. What if, instead of seeing blame yourself as a criticism, we see it as an invitation? An invitation to step into your full power, to become the conscious creator of your life, to live with courage and authenticity. This doesn't mean you won't face pain or hardship. Life will always present challenges, but your relationship with those challenges will be different. You will meet them with the understanding that your response is your power, your choice, your definition of self. Each day, ask yourself, where am I giving my power away by blaming something external? How can I reclaim that power by focusing on my own choices and responses? Make this a daily reflection, a gentle inquiry. The liberation that comes from this shift is profound. It's a move from being a leaf in the wind to being the wind itself, or at least the sailor who skillfully uses the wind. The world's circumstances become elements to navigate, not forces that dictate your journey. This is not about becoming emotionless or detached. It's about choosing your actions despite your emotions. Feel the anger, the sadness, the frustration. These are human. But then, choose your response from a place of awareness and responsibility, not from raw reaction. This philosophy of radical responsibility is the ultimate act of self-respect. It says, my choices matter. My internal state matters. I am capable of shaping my experience. It honors the profound capacity within each of us. When you stop blaming the world, you start to see the immense creative potential within yourself. You realize that your life isn't something that just happens to you. It's something you actively participate in creating, day by day, choice by choice. The initial discomfort of this idea, blaming yourself, can transform into a deep sense of empowerment. It's like realizing you've had the keys to your own kingdom all along, but you were looking for someone else to open the gates. So embrace this challenge. See where it takes you. Notice the subtle shifts in your perception, your emotional state, and your sense of agency as you practice turning inward for responsibility rather than outward for blame. You are not responsible for every event that befalls you, but you are, as Sartre insists, responsible for what you make of those events. You are responsible for the meaning you construct, the story you tell yourself, and the actions you take. This is the essence of existential freedom. Not freedom from circumstance, but freedom in circumstance. The freedom to create value, to act authentically, to define yourself through your choices, no matter what the world throws your way. The world will continue to be unpredictable, sometimes unfair, often chaotic. That is its nature. But your inner world, your responses, your choices, these can be cultivated to be a source of strength, peace, and unwavering purpose. So let us reframe. Stop blaming the world means stop giving away your power. Start blaming yourself means start owning your power, your choices, your capacity to create your life. It is a call to profound self-authorship. In the end, the journey Sartre invites us on is one toward authenticity and profound self-respect. It's a path that may be challenging, but it leads to a life imbued with meaning of your own making, a life where you are truly the protagonist. Remember, this isn't about harsh self-criticism. It's about honest self-assessment leading to empowered action. Each time you choose responsibility over blame, you strengthen your inner resolve and expand your capacity for joy and fulfillment, regardless of external storms. The world may present the questions, but you author the answers through your choices. This realization is the cornerstone of a resilient and purposeful life. It transforms challenges into opportunities for self-definition and growth, fostering a deep sense of agency. This shift from external blame to internal responsibility doesn't happen overnight. It's a practice, a muscle you build. Be patient with yourself. Celebrate small victories where you chose awareness over automatic reaction, agency over apathy. Ultimately, Sartre's philosophy frees us from the tyranny of circumstance by placing the locus of control firmly within. It's an invitation to live more deeply, more consciously, and more powerfully, taking the helm of our own existence with courage and clarity. The greatest freedom is not the absence of constraints, but the ability to choose our response to those constraints. This is the wisdom that allows us to find meaning and purpose not in an ideal world, but in the world as it is, through the power of our own will. So the next time life feels overwhelming and the urge to blame the world arises, remember Sartre's profound insight. Pause, breathe, and ask, what is my choice here? How can I own my response and in doing so, reclaim my freedom and my power? To stop blaming the world and start blaming, or rather, empowering yourself, is to choose a life of active creation over passive reception. It is to say yes to your capacity to shape your experience, regardless of the script life hands you. This is the path to genuine inner peace and strength, understanding that while we cannot always control what happens around us, we can always control what happens within us. And that, ultimately, is what defines the quality of our lives. The challenge, then, is to live awake to this freedom, this responsibility. To choose, consciously and consistently, to be the author of your responses, the architect of your inner world, and thus, the true shaper of your destiny. Thank you for joining this reflection. May you find strength and liberation in the practice of taking responsibility, not as a burden, but as the ultimate expression of your freedom and your power to create a meaningful life.